Hello and welcome to a Bergkamp Wonderland and Arsenal podcast. I'm Gimli and tonight I'll be joined by... First up, just about fully recharged after this week's transfer deadline day special, it's Danny the GFP.
Oh, I'm all worn out and all of a kerfuffle.
Are you?
Yes.
Did you enjoy it?
It was tickety-boo, thanks for asking.
And we had lots of lovely interaction from all the lovely people that tuned in on the day, so a big thank you to everybody that took part and came on.
It was wonderful.
It was indeed. Next up, this week he's been described as a budget Jesus and Conchita from the Eurovision Song Contest. It's Kris Carpenter. Hello, budget Jesus.
Hello, Colin. You alright?
Yeah, not too bad at all, thank you. I still don't know where he is.
Probably best.
Yeah, probably is. It'll just get messy. Next up, he's ABW's master of money and one half of steak and ginger. It's Andrew. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, handsome. How you doing?
Oh, handsome. You know just what to say, don't you?
Sometimes.
He's a smooth talker.
I'm a little bit hurt. I know, obviously, that you guys, it's 3 days after the transfer deadline, and you tried to loan me out last minute. I'm still standing, and I'm going to give it my best for the rest of the season to try and win the fans back over.
Good. I think there's plenty of people that want to hear a little bit more of you.
Oh, that's an interesting. It makes a difference, but I'll give it my best.
We tried to loan you out to the TSB, but they weren't having you.
Really?
Yeah, we'll see how you perform tonight, though, eh?
They saw my injury record. They know my booze record, so...
That's what it is. And finally, making his long overdue return to the show, but we've stayed patient. You see what I did there? It's Tim Payton. Hello, Tim.
Evening, gents. How you doing?
Not too bad at all. And where have you been hiding?
I feel like Diaby, coming back from a long, long layoff. I don't know where I've been hiding, but it's good to be here.
Yeah, it's nice to have you back. So we'll start proceeding then this week with the Arsenal scores. So over to you, Danny.
Arsenal under 18, 0. West Ham under 18s, 5. That's 5. That's like half of 10. That's like twice 2.5. Conceded goals in the 5th, the 10th, the 45, 46, 67. That's all I have to say. Kris, any information about the wonderful Pirates?
Yeah, a little bit of information. We played a friendly last weekend because the wonderful weather in Plymouth didn't hold up. I'm afraid we had a snowed off, rained off, iced off pitch. It was like a bloody ice rink down there. So we played a friendly, which I know everyone will be surprised to hear is against the Southway. We never played them before.
Oh, we like the Southway.
I think
always
it's
good and reliable.
It's the only ones they get a win against. Sorry, but if Jason was listening, he'd be sat here at this point going, "Go on, Gimli."
Oh, he's nodding away, isn't he, in his rocking chair at home with his flip flops on.
He's waving.
We played Southway. We've actually played them so many times in friendlies. We're thinking about getting a little trophy that we'll just hand back to each other each time we play. But it they'll keep it, in other words. But it ended in a 1-1 draw. Good game, actually. Good game of football. We had a 72-year-old ref, which is always good fun. One of our players' granddads came along to ref, so that was nice. It's good game of football. We went 1-0 up. We got a new player called Sam Brutti, which is the best name in the world. He's a midfielder and he scored on his debut, which is always a bonus. And we 1-0 up, and then they got a little bit lucky. Corner came in for the equaliser, which got cleared quite well, but flicked off the back of somebody and back into the striker's path, and he tapped it home. So good, well fought contest. And this weekend, as we speak, our games are on. So fingers crossed, we're back into league action this week. We're away on our home pitch, if you can work that one out. But we're playing Smeaton Holmes, that giant of the footballing world.
So have the Barbican Pirates fans already been talking about this Bruty fella like he's Harry Kane?
No, because he's not a... you can insert the adjective there. No, he's a nice bloke, and he is actually talented, and I think he might be quite good for more than 1 year. So he hasn't been compared to Harry Kane, but no, he's a good player, very, very good player. 6 foot, strapping lad, talks, organises. Yeah, good little footballer.
Harry Kane. Go on.
I was going to say, it sounds like his body's too brutylicious for you, babe.
Oh, see what you did there. I've actually nicknamed him Sam Brutal because some of his challenges are hefty, and I like that.
I'm sure we can think of more names for him over the coming weeks.
Right
then, we'll start the show this week by talking about our 5-0 home demolition of Aston Villa. For his analysis on the game, we'll go straight to Andrew. Andrew.
No, it was good to see. I mean, it's not every day we get to play a League One team at home. We certainly made the most of it. They were shite. No, I thought it was obviously a very positive performance from us. I think the fact that we were missing a couple of key players and we still managed to push on. I think for large parts of the game, we probably we dominated the game, but in terms of the confidence in the team, you can see players like we were able to take risks, for example. So playing Theo Walcott, you can see he's still very much 1 or 2 yards behind the pace. He's still lacking a little bit of match sharpness, a little bit of match confidence, and the fact that we were able to play him against someone like Villa, I think it's a real testament to the rest of the strength of the squad and how we are shaping up right now. That we're able to almost carry him in a sense and give him that time and space that he needs to redevelop and recover to becoming back to his best. And you saw when he scored that goal, just the relief in his face. I think there should be definitely some praise given to players like Coquelin and Bellerin, 2 youngsters who have come into the fold in recent months when we've needed them to the most, and they've really stepped at the mark. And they were probably two of the best players on the pitch on the weekend. The defence was certainly strong. Nacho Monreal, I think he's gone without the praise he deserves in recent weeks. He's certainly stepped up to the plate, and he's been very solid at left back. He's been solid at centre back when we've needed him. And it was also good to see the Koscielny and Mertesacker partnership back. In midfield, we certainly look a lot more balanced now. That Coquelin and Ramsey partnership. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to be our strongest midfield two or the two that we'll take forward for the rest of this season. But I think for once we've seen a real balance in midfield where we've got the discipline there of Coquelin. He's ready to hold. He's willing to break up play, and it also allows Ramsey to bring out the best in his game in terms of moving forward. He's going to get box to box. I don't think Ramsey's quite back to where he was last season because of the injuries that he's had in recent months, and his confidence isn't as high as it was. But maybe perhaps playing alongside someone like Coquelin, who's just going to basically give him that freedom and that liberty to do what he needs to do, we should see an improvement in his game as well. And obviously props to people like Ozil as well and Cazorla, who I think had both of them had excellent games. Both of them were obviously destroyed a very weak Aston Villa team, but nonetheless they destroyed them. And then Giroud up top, I was screaming my heart out when I saw him took the goal the way he did. I thought he was going to mess that up, taking that extra touch. But obviously he made me look like the idiot I am. So I think it was an excellent performance by Arsenal. It was great to see Akpom come on and do so well. I think he was slightly unlucky in the sense that his movement off the ball was very good. He won as a penalty very cleverly, and he could have had a couple of goals if it wasn't for a couple of sloppy passes from Santi in the last 20-30 minutes, which is a shame because it would have been great to see him get his name on the score sheet. But I think it was a fantastic performance from the team. They probably couldn't have done too much better than what they did. It was fantastic to see them keep a clean sheet as well, which is one of the main positives in recent weeks with the defence stabilising. I hope to see more of that with the kind of the run-in for the rest of the season.
Definitely so. I mean, you've covered a lot there, but we'll go over to Kris now and talk about Mesut Ozil. Kris, there's been a lot of people on his back, and since the Brighton game, he's come back and he's looked pretty good. I mean, he's obviously bulked up, which I think is helping him. But that assist for Giroud's goal in the first 10 minutes, that was a thing of beauty, wasn't it?
He's a gem of a player. I think it's kind of symptomatic of what happens when a big club signs a big player. Is that the mentality that we have in the modern day is that we expect the world instantly, and I think sometimes you almost have to see the best of a player over a period of time. And since he's come back, I mean, he does look sharper. He does look a little bit more sort of muscular. Looks a bit more tanned. So I'm wondering if he might have had a little bit of a sunshine break. I noticed these weird things, but no, he does look sharp. Sorry, go on.
That's just a pervert.
Sorry, I like to look at middle-aged German men. He note that one down for a clip. But he did play very, very well. I think we've done the right thing integrating him in. It'll be interesting to see if he does make the lineup for Saturday. I've got a feeling he will, because I think he's the closest we've got to Alexis when Alexis doesn't play. And I don't mean in style as far as sort of speed and directness, but he's that craft. He's that sort of little bit of genius along with Santi Cazorla. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him maybe as one of the two behind a front man. But he sees things that people just don't see, and that pass if that had been pretty much any other Premier League football, I think they would have sort of brought it down, maybe turned away from goal and tried to play the ball out wide to set up for a counter attack. But there was none of it. And like Andrew said, Villa were. I mean, they are terrible. I mean, we as Arsenal fans sit here some weeks and cuss each other out and feel gutted when we lose a game. But imagine being a Villa fan. I mean, is it 11 goals all season or something ridiculous? I mean, the Pirates have got more goals than Villa this season.
I think they were actually bottom of the league for goals scored this season, aren't they? Out of every club in the league.
I mean, Jesus, they do well in French football, but no, they're just they were terrible. But again, sort of much like Andrew said, you can only beat what's in front of you. And the thing I particularly like, as well as Ozil's flick for the goal for Giroud, was the way he took that goal that he notched as well. Whilst some people say, no, it wasn't a very clean strike, it was just the sort of finesse, just the gentle side foot pass almost into the corner, using the bounce of the ball that he knew he'd get as he sort of put it round Guzan, who's had a bit of a poor day, but he's no mug as a goalkeeper. And it sort of shows maybe that he's got that confidence, because he was snatching at things a little bit before he got injured and was maybe trying to force a few things, whereas that pass was just as sort of relaxed and free flowing as you could get. And let's make no bones about it. Mesut Ozil is a world-class footballer. You don't play for Real Madrid if you're not. So if we get the best out of him, which obviously will involve playing him in the right position, which it seems to be, although he kind of played from the left, he was given almost that free role to cut inside. But you did see him tracking back a little bit as well. So maybe he's just refined his game a little bit in the absence, and he's come back a sort of a fitter, sharper, and more determined player.
Mm. And we will talk through the goals, but I feel we'll start from the back, go forward. Coquelin, one of the best performers on the day, Tim. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about him. I mean, he was superb, putting in important tackles and breaking up play. Can you see any resemblance in the way Arsenal are playing now to him being in the team? I mean, certainly since Man City, we seem to have stepped it up a gear, and he's been in the team from pretty much around that time. Do you think he's had a major influence in the recent results?
Yes, I think I do, but I also think we need to watch for a little bit longer to see just how much it's that's made the difference, and how much it's other performances around him as well, and who we've been playing. But the main thing is, it just seems to be, if a player goes out with one simple instruction, which is kind of hold your position in a kind of arc behind your own halfway line circle, moving strongly on the ball, and cover your defence, what a massive difference it makes. He doesn't do a lot, but what he does, he just does it simply and effectively, and in the way that you'd want to see a player in that position do. Is it because he follows his instructions more than others give him? Is it because he's slightly more physical and capable? I need to watch him a little bit longer, but I do think he's been a part of the good form of recent weeks. I think we must also, I think the derby on Saturday is going to be huge, because all the results that have kind of given us a little bit lift recently have all been what you'd expect, with the proviso that the Manchester City was the kind of breaking of the hoodoo, finally winning that big game. And now we've got to show we can do it again with the Spurs away game, rather than just having played well against teams we'd be expected to beat. So huge game coming up, and I'm sure Coquelin will be in the middle of it all.
Very true. It is still early days with him, but the early signs are positive. Danny, I want to go to you next and talk about a player that's pretty much, I think, been an unsung hero this season. Nacho Monreal. He's clearly ahead of Gibbs, isn't he, at the moment?
Oh, definitely. It's a bit of a shame, because Gibbs is one of my 3 Arsenal players I'd love to see stay at the club for the rest of their career with Wilshere and Ramsey, and go on to break records for appearances and win cups. But you can't just play him because he's one of my favourite players. He's been on the bench, and I don't think he's the kind of player that's going to moan or ask for a move. But Monreal has been absolutely superb this season, probably since Christmas, because I think maybe playing as a centre-back, because before he was playing at centre-back, he'd only had a couple of games at centre back, and I think that maybe have helped his defending skills and awareness of what he has to do to cover the centre backs. Plus having Ospina there, because in the time that Ospina's played in goal, I don't think he didn't play against Bayern, didn't he? I don't think he's conceded a goal in 4 or 5 games now, has he? I know it's
five games it could be.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I think that's 4 games in a row now. Yeah, so it was Hull, Stoke, Man City and Villa that he's been in goal for. Was he in goal at Hull? I'm just going to have a little clicky poo. He certainly was. Yeah, that's 4 clean sheets in a row. And as a defender, that's got to give you so much confidence knowing that the goalkeeper isn't going to pick the ball up and then run out to the halfway line with it and then try and chin slam choke Boston back grab someone with it and then end up getting sent off. It's I lost the plot there a little bit, didn't I?
Yeah, you did that.
The gist of it is, I think Ospina is filling the entire team with confidence. Mertesacker and Koscielny being at the back together, that's going to make life easier for everybody. And I think Monreal, that Man City game, has given him so much confidence to just go on and play his natural game. And I think he's part of the reason why the back 5 are doing so well at the moment. So yeah, I think he's been brilliant, and long may it continue.
We'll carry on with the Ospina theme, and Andrew, we'll go to you next. Arsene Wenger made comments this week that Szczesny was still his number 1 keeper. Do you think it's unfair on Ospina when he's having such a good run to say he's still number 1? Or do you think that Szczesny should play against Spurs?
I mean, Ospina's a fully grown man, and he probably appreciates that Wenger has to say certain things in the press. He has to keep, obviously... What Wenger says in the press to some extent is irrelevant when it comes to things like who's our number 1. I mean, in reality, whoever's playing in goal at the time, that's what that matters to the goalkeeper. It doesn't matter who the press think is our number 1, who the fans think our number 1 is. If Ospina's getting a run in games and he's playing well and his confidence is high, then that's all he should concentrate on. And Wenger's going to make these sorts of comments because he probably has to for PR reasons. He can't go out there and say he's dropped Szczesny or Szczesny had a cigarette in the shower at Southampton, so he's in the bad books. He can't publicly come out and say these sorts of things. I think, Ospina, he's as we know, he's a very mature guy. I don't think he's going to read too much into these comments. His main focus is going to be whether he's playing in goal on the weekend or not. So, Wenger can say what he likes around about, what the situation with Szczesny is, the severity of it. He's not going to go into too much because, obviously, there's media press rumours out there that Szczesny's never going to play for Arsenal again, coming from certain sources. So I think Wenger's got he's got a diligence to remain coy on the subject, and he's not going to slam Szczesny publicly. And likewise, I think as I mentioned, whilst Ospina's number 1, he's going to be feeling good, he's going to be confident. So I think he's just going to shrug these comments off like a water off a duck's back. I mean, that's going to be his main concern, is just maintaining his place effectively. And when it comes to the North London derby, I'd keep Ospina in goal. I don't see why you would change a winning formula. As is mentioned earlier, he's considered few if not no goals in recent weeks. The defence are looking very confident. He's marshalling the back 4 for sure. He's very communicative. You can see that. I sit right at the bottom of the stadium. Towards the North Bank, so get to hear and see the goalkeepers quite a lot. He's very vocal. You can see he commands the defence very well. His distribution is very quick, which I think is quite important. That's one thing we used to see a lot from Lehmann in our successful years when we used to have when our counter-attacking game was very solid. So I think we have to stick with Ospina in goal. There's no point changing goalkeepers every so often. If the only reason you're going to take a goalkeeper out of the team is for disciplinarian reasons, then there's no point having a backup keeper. I think you want to have 2 good goalkeepers battling with each other, and Ospina more than deserves his place in the team right now. He's done very well. Szczesny towards the end was making quite a lot of howlers, a few mistakes. So I certainly wouldn't change that formula around. And I think if we let our defence grow with confidence, having someone behind them like Ospina for now, I'm not saying we should can Szczesny in the future or we should get rid of him in the summer, but we should certainly let Ospina have a run of games. Until we feel like he needs to be dropped or rested or injured, for example. And I'm very happy with the way he's playing right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Kris, over to you. And one of the star performers again for that game was Hector Bellerin. And I think we were all a little bit worried after we saw Debuchy get injured because we saw Bellerin maybe not be overly confident and have the best of games when he did come in. But he just seems to be getting better and better, doesn't he? I mean, would it be unfair to say that he might have gone as far as to be man of the match?
He was certainly one of the standout performers. I mean, the thing is, this is a lad who's come in not so much out of nowhere, because a lot of people were even talking about him last season when he was on or sort of in and around the squad. I think people were quite keen to see him come. That sounds wrong, but you know what I mean. He came to us sort of primarily as kind of a wide right midfielder, and he's been moved to that right back spot, and it seems to be sort of working out very well for him. You can see by the way he plays that he's got a confidence, he's got a swagger, and obviously that helps when the team are performing well. But obviously when Callum Chambers has played at right back, for me, I don't think he is a right back. It's not just how he plays and some of the mistakes, but he doesn't sort of strike me as a right back who moves like a right back, if that makes sense. Whereas Bellerin, you can naturally see when he gets the ball, he's comfortable in possession. He's comfortable sort of linking with the man in front of him. He tracks well. He's got a very good recovery tackle, which I've noticed that recent weeks where you kind of judge a defender on how well they defend primarily, but it's also good to judge a defender when he is beaten or if he's caught upfield, how quickly can he get back into position and make a tackle. And that's something that he does extremely well. If he is caught upfield, you can almost guarantee that he's back where he should be. And it might be a late lunge to win the ball back, but 9 times out of 10, he seems to time them well. And then to sort of cap it off with the goal, I mean, that was... The look on his face was almost sort of Carl Jenkinson-esque, of like a lad who's just sort of realised a dream of scoring a goal at the very top level, and it was, dare I say, a very sort of Barcelona-esque finish. They're taught in La Masia, they're taught with the sort of the open boot, so to speak, like the low finish and the pass into the net, almost like Ozil's was. And it was a fair old distance. That's the edge of the box. I've seen many a player at many level thrash that high and wide. So it was a hell of a take. And that'll only give him confidence. And I think, to be perfectly honest, at the moment, he's keeping Callum Chambers out where he probably wouldn't have done a couple of months back. He's thoroughly meriting his place in the side. And I touched on it, I think, the last time I was on. He had an absolute nightmare at Stoke, as did many. And I think it shows a credit to the lad that he's got the mental strength to come back from that. And sort of turn in these performances to make him arguably the number one choice now until Debussy's fit.
And we'll stick with you, Kris. If you watched Match of the Day 2 and you saw his interview afterwards, he looks like a kid with a good head on his shoulders. I mean, his English is pretty damn good, actually, isn't it? And he even joked in the interview and said that some of the players are taking the mickey out of him for sounding a bit of like a Cockney.
A bit of a Cockney, yeah. It is good English, actually. He speaks quite fast, but he's I think pretty much all the young. It's one of the reasons why we get these players in quite young, because they get very good English lessons. I know one of our bloggers was talking about the English lessons that Christian Bilic is getting, and the fact that they've immediately housed him. They've given him a sort of a language coach and given him all his home comfort. So I think these lads are clearly very well looked after, as they should be at a club of our size. But when you can sort of speak the language and you can integrate well, I think I'm right in saying his lady is English as well. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure she is. So he's obviously a very settled and a very happy young man. And to be fair, he's living the dream of thousands of people. He's 19 years of age, which is, again, something that goes under the radar a little bit when talking about these players. And to be perfectly honest, I think this is the reason why Carl Jenkinson was let go. They obviously saw something in the lad either pre-season or during training last season, and they thought, well, this guy, okay, Carl's got a good cross on him, but maybe this guy's actually ready to step in, whereas Carl maybe would have needed a season to still acclimatise. But credit to the guy, he's doing everything that could be asked of him. And like I said before, the fact that he is now ahead of Callum Chambers, who was a big money signing, sort of is credit to him, and it only goes further to add to my sort of or my views that English players are just simply not technically as good as players that are brought up overseas, and you can see that when Bellerin's got the ball.
And Tim, from one youth player to another, someone that came on hoping to go in Bellerin's footsteps in nailing down a place in the first team is Chuba Akpom, or as if you're Danny Apcom. He came on, he won a penalty, maybe should have scored another when he had that header. Where do you think his place lies in the team? I understand he's just signed a new contract this week.
Yeah, he did. It was actually the sort of deadline day announcement for Arsenal, wasn't it? I think the day after that he'd signed an extended contract, which has excited everyone at the club who were keen to keep him. They obviously have seen far more than we have behind the scenes. And at this stage, Arsene Wenger, I think, will rightly say that it's not so much about the physical talent they have, but how they'll actually do with the mental job of playing in for a big team in front of crowds and dealing with, the adulation, the criticism and everything that comes with it. And that you can only see how good they are from being played. but they've got confidence in him. They've started to stick him in the team. Perhaps a little bit of that was to get him to sign a new contract because he wanted to feel that he'd play. So it will be interesting to see how many appearances he gets now, especially as I think that Danny Welbeck has returned from the injury.
Yes, he is fit apparently to face Tottenham.
So you would think that knocks the young lad down a level. But, just like we've seen with Bellerin, they can come through very quickly and make a big impact. It's great that we've got this guy signed up, and let's hope he's another one off the production line. When I say another one, rather from the academy level, there haven't been many. So let's hope it is one coming through from that level for us.
Yeah, very, very true. Where else do we talk about Arsenal with this game? I think one of the things we have to talk about, and Danny, I'll come to you, is just how clinical Arsenal were on the day. I mean, we saw many, many good finishes. Walcott come in and scored a goal that was simply, I would say, probably Henry-esque, if that is even a word. And he's getting back to full fitness. But it seemed like the goals were all, the pinpoint. They weren't massively hard-hit shots. They were just pinpoint and precise. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the stats on whoscored.com, who get their info from Opta. And if anyone from Opta is listening, if you'd like to let me have a password, then I can come on and give you a lovely shout every week. But they're very tight with their information. 13 shots on goal, 8 on target, 3 off target, 2 hit the woodwork, 1 hit the post and 1 hit the crossbar from memory, and 2 were blocked. I think we could have we were very, very close to getting 10 goals if our luck would have been with us. Whereas Villa, 9 shots on goal, 2 on target, 5 off target, and 2 were blocked. They were just awful. But it says our pass success rate was 82%, which is good. And yet again, we won a game with the least amount of possession, 48%. Because after the game, what's their manager's name? Lambert. After doing he did the Highlander films, didn't he? Yeah, he did the Highlander films because nuns have no sense of humour, as we all know. Oh God, I've lost my mind again. What was I going to say? He come out and said for the first hour it was it could have gone either way. I don't know what he was watching. The poor bloke, he's delusional and he's high on his own importance. But yeah, I think our finishing was fantastic, and we could have. I said last week, didn't I? 5-0, maybe even 7-0, and then Tony Woodcock could get all 7. I think it was Woodcock that it was Woodcock. I think he got 5 or 7. Yeah, so I knew we'd hammer them. And
but no, we should say that you actually got it right, didn't you? You got the 5-0 on the Predictions League.
That's the first time I got a result right since we started doing this in November 2012. And I'm over the moon.
And I will apologise. Because I asked if you'd been smoking crack or something like that. So I do apologise to you. You're absolutely spot on. I only went, I think, 2 or 3-0. To which I changed 3-0 Giroud. I WhatsApped it to Kate before the game. And I will screenshot that, so it is all perfectly legit.
I think another thing you should point out, that every week we are getting players that are getting real high 9s. This week, Ozil, Cazorla both got a 9.6 and Giroud got a 9.3. Most teams are lucky if they get anyone in a 9, let alone 2, 3, 4 a week. And Coquelin Mad Frankie got an 8.4, Ospina got an 8.2, Bellerin, who I swear is a spitting image of Andrew, got an 8.5. So we're just he's a cheeky monkey, but you both have dashing young looks.
I think the one good thing is, I mean, if we wanted to sit there and had the time tonight, we could have probably gone on and talked about this game for an hour and a half and still found things to, maybe bring up.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I loved it.
It was a superb game, and the past couple of games have been more like that. I mean, from writing the podcast and just writing the notes on it, I mean, before at the start of the season, it was like, wow, we'll spend 10 minutes on that and then move on. But now it's just, I'm spoilt for choice on what I can write. We'll move on to the next topic.
Just one more thing before we leave there, just one little pun. By the end of the match, there's more shouts of "Olé" from our fans than there were by a group of angry Frenchmen in a coffee shop. So you can see that the fans were absolutely loving it, which was fantastic. And the passing game.
Did you see the Villa fans clapping the players off the pitch though? At the end.
I like Aston Villa. If there's any Villa fans listening, I've been there. I've been there twice, both for FA Cup semi-finals. I was on the flyover as Christopher Wray scored, and I could hear it from the stadium. I was angry. And the second time we lost to Man United, we should have won every trophy that season. I like Villa. I like the team. I like the ground, and I've got a bit of a soft spot for Villa. So
What about the time, though, when their fans were singing at the Emirates the songs about Eduardo having his leg broken? I remember that. That was one thing that's kind of stuck in my heart. That was one thing I didn't like about them.
I got a selective memory. I only remember what suits me.
Sounds like my girlfriend.
Hey, Ginger.
There you go. That's a nice little a little flat cap tilt to Ginger there. Right, we'll move on then. And our next topic we wanted to talk about briefly was the transfer window. And if Arsenal did enough or maybe not enough business. Tim, you've been fairly critical of Arsenal in the previous windows. I mean, how do you think they performed in this one?
Well, they did the signing that absolutely had to happen, and the signing that you still very legitimately say, why the hell didn't it happen last summer, and what would our league position look like if they got enough decent defenders in at the beginning of the season? But let's move on from that. They've signed someone. Now we have to see how they settle in. Clearly got a good pedigree, come out of a good league, and a team with a good record, but I've never watched this person play, despite what they'll tell you. The majority of people haven't, and we'll have to see how they settle in. I thought the most interesting thing that Arsene Wenger said about him was that he arrives with no English at all, and being Brazilian as a Portuguese speaker, there isn't really anybody to help in the club. So I think the integration issue and learning how to communicate with his defensive colleagues for when he plays will be a big issue, and it might take him a little bit of time. And we'll really be judging that signing, I think, come next August, when we're worrying whether or not there needs to be another one, or we're very happy that he settles down alongside Chambers as a central defensive cover. But you can now see, particularly with Coquelin coming back as well, and adding obviously a kind of defensive midfielder type, that we look a lot more solid in those positions. The squad is deeper. And let's hope that they can contribute to a stronger second half of the season than the first half of the season was.
And Tim, you're a bit like our Jeff in knowing a little bit more about what goes behind the scenes at Arsenal and maybe what goes on at training. There's reports coming out that Gabriel has left a couple of players in the air, started training, quite positively, not scared to get stuck in. Can you confirm that for us?
Well, I've heard that he's getting stuck in. Partly it's because he can't actually talk to them, so the only way he can leave a message is to kick him in the air. I don't know. You hear all these sorts of things, but training doesn't replicate what it will be like to play, and there'll be certain things when he. And things which no one can predict. When he first plays, will he play alongside Mertesacker or will he play alongside Koscielny? He will almost certainly be a better player with one than the other, and it will take time to find that out. And it could make or break his Arsenal career depending on who he starts with and how it goes. We just have to wait to see him play. But at least we've now got the option of of an experienced 24, 25-year-old defender who can come into the team or be on the bench to back us up. And that's something that we didn't have a week ago. So we've got to be pleased about that, because we were incredibly skinny back there. And we and also it's looked better the last 2 or 3 games, but we're walking that tightrope of Koscielny's Achilles and Mertesacker, who did finally get given his sort of week rest, but has played non-stop for almost 18 months for Arsenal and must be in a danger area of getting injured. And you kind of worry slightly less that, that there was going to be a week where both of them went down at the same time. And at least we've now got 2 solid central defenders that can come in, and that gives us better options than we had last week. So let's be pleased about that.
And I mean, with Gabriel coming in, and of course younger players making the step into the first squad, and we can't still forget that there are players out injured, like Mathieu Debuchy. I mean, how close do you think the team is to being the finished article? Do you think many make out that we're further away than we actually are?
Oh, God, that's interesting, isn't it? I think we're still a little bit away from being the finished article. And it's kind of, you can always improve, can't you? And then you have to balance that with the resources you've got and what is the maximum you can do. The best question to ask is, who is the best goalkeeper in the Premier League? And then sort of think, how far down the list you have to go till you get to our goalkeeper? Who is the best right back? Who is the best left back, and constantly challenge yourself with that David Dean question, the kind of shaving question, looking in the mirror, and it screams back at you, get a better team, get a better team. I think we've now got solid players in every position and some depth, and I think that makes a difference. Whether we've quite got a title winning team yet, I think we're probably one or two signings away from that, but there probably is the finances to get that right in the summer.
And you talk about the finances in the summer there. I mean, many have said, and Arsene Wenger came out and said that, there's going to be more money in the summer. So my question would be, with a bumper kitty in the summer, where is that money likely to be invested in the squad?
Well, I still think you'd probably expect it to be the world-class defensive midfielder. When you can obviously the summer is a much better time to sign a player like that. And I expect Arsenal will invest. They could spend, and this is on the proviso of qualifying for Champions League, which can mess up the budgets a little bit. They'd still be in a positive position if they didn't get in, but if they do get in the Champions League, and the way it works at the moment, try and keep it simple, but the way they're amortising players, which sort of releases a kind of figure that you can spend each year, and the income is coming in, you'd look to between 30 and 60 million being able to be spent this summer on top of any proceeds from players going, and to be able to take the wage bill up a bit higher because there will be further commercial income coming in, and then next year there'll be increased Champions League money and Premier League money following the year after. So, Arsenal do not have a money problem anymore. The real judgment now is how well will they spend it and how well they'll spend it.
And we'll turn our eye back just to the window just gone. I mean, we all know that Nacho Monreal was a deal that was done in January but was due to be actually finalised and completed in the summer. Was there any potential for Arsenal to do any of the summer deals in the window just gone, and did they?
No. The player that they found and signed, they were desperate. They knew the moment the August window shut that they got a problem in defence. And I actually think that they ran out of time. And I think that they got massively spooked and sidetracked, if you remember, by the Olivier Giroud injury, which came just a week before the window. And we were so bare bones there. And whereas they've been looking for a central defender, and I also think they've been looking to sort out the Podolski situation, and they kind of just went into lockdown. So the Podolski moving out, which should have happened. I mean, 90k a week for a few tweets. I mean, that's quite a lot of money, isn't it? And then bringing in the cover for Mertesacker Koscielny. All that had to get discarded for the scramble to bring a striker in to cover for Giroud, which they did manage to do by the skin of their teeth, and kind of got lucky that Manchester United didn't pull the same trick as Chelsea the window before and say we're not selling to a rival. And they pulled that one in, and that was a priority. And they've caught up with themselves this December with moving Podolski on and bringing Gabriel in. But those weren't like long-term strategic things, or a case of bringing in the player that would have brought in the summer. That was really a case of just find me a central defender who is available, and he's got to come into the squad now. And as I say, it's still hindsight will judge whether or not they found the right one. But for the summer, big money can be spent.
And moving forward to the summer, there's been rumours that now there's an ethos in place with Arsenal that they're going to go out and sign one marquee signing a year, i.e. Ozil the year before, Sanchez this year. Is that true, or is that just speculation?
Well, they've got the funds for it. They've absolutely got the funds to do that. And also, if you think that a team that's going to really challenge to win the Premier League and the Champions League has to have 4 or 5 world-class players in it, and then 4 or 5 sort of very good international standard players in it. And I still think we're a little bit short in that balance, and you've still got 1 or 2 more years of adding in that real world-class. And if it's 1 per year, or hopefully you get 1 plus 1 who's almost there and you bring them on, we're getting really close. And Arsenal can keep adding at that Ozil Sanchez level in the summer. So there's lots to be excited about, but there's also a lot to do in the next 4 months. And I think we still got to, it's kind of like glass half full, glass half empty, because I think Arsenal screwed up this season. I think we should have been on Chelsea's heels, and I think we would have been on Chelsea's heels if we'd just been a bit more organised in August. But the good news is that there are a couple of, they're still in 2 major cups that interest us, and hopefully a healthy-ish league position to not have to worry right down to the final day. we can pick and keep building in the next few weeks.
Thank you, Tim. I'll open it up to everybody else then. I had some set questions that I was going to ask all of you guys at the start, but seeing as we don't get Tim here very often, and we didn't get chance to quiz him on the transfer deadline day specials, I wanted to ask those particular questions. But I'll open it up then. Is there anybody from the panel that wanted to ask Tim anything in regards to Arsenal in general or the transfer situation or anything?
I've got a question from our Facebook page, if I may.
You can slip it in if it's a Tim-related question.
Cool. I'll ask Tim the question as well. Full of it tonight. Right. There's a question here from Aaron Farrell, Tim, and it's quite long, so bear with me. He says, question for Tim. I want to know what his opinion is regarding the atmosphere in the ground. It's being said that the reason for our poor atmosphere is down to the foreign fans, he puts in brackets like myself, who can't attend every game but go on quote-unquote day trips. I myself feel strongly against the people who leave the game 10 minutes to go and get home earlier, and those who turn up late, which makes our stadium look empty and motionless in the last few minutes of the game. In short, I'd like to know where Tim and the rest of the guests stand on this issue. What do they feel can be done to improve the atmosphere in the ground? Be interested to hear your opinion, because a lot of the local fans, think people like myself are to blame for the poor atmosphere inside the ground.
So that is a really good question. I think the atmosphere in the Emirates is a really big issue facing the club now. It can be so flat. I don't think it's got anything to do with where you come from, like how you're described. I think it's got to do with, well, I think, do you feel your seat and how do you act when you're inside the ground? And also, what is the club doing to promote a good atmosphere and get fans in who will create that atmosphere? And it covers a range of issues. If I can urge everyone who is listening, go and look at the Red Action Twitter feed or the AST Twitter feed, and I think the BSM one as well. All have been promoting a survey we put together this week, asking people questions about the best kickoff times, about creating a better atmosphere. But we're also starting to set our sights on, the Premier League are negotiating a new TV deal at the moment. And we think it could be that in the next deal that each game will be worth £10 million individually. So why the hell can't they use some of that £10 million to subsidise the ticket prices, perhaps for the 16 to 25-year-olds, those most likely to make some noise and those who are being priced out and not giving us a kind of younger fan base in the ground? Why can't some of that money be given to particularly subsidise the away ticket prices that Arsenal fans pay, always paying Category A everywhere? Why can't some of that TV money be used on initiatives to help Red Action, bring more banners into the ground, have initiatives to create noise? And finally, let's see some of that money spent on a decent ticket exchange. One of the reasons it was a shit atmosphere against Aston Villa was there were 8,000 empty seats from Arsenal fans. Now, if those tickets were recycled on ticket exchange, sold on to youngsters, sold on to local fans who were around the ground, of course you're going to have a better noise. You're going to have like 15% more people in there. And we all know what it looks like with an empty stadium. I think it's a big priority. I think, unfortunately, Arsenal sit on their arse a bit, collect the money in from the initial ticket sales, say we've sold 60,000 tickets. Do they care if only 50,000 are in? I don't think they care enough, and I really hope they do something about it. But if I could just repeat that, have a look out. I'll tweet it again, and others can. Look out for this survey, which is asking people about the atmosphere, about the ticket prices, and what we can do to improve things at the Arsenal. Just realised that might sound like a bit of a rant, but I think I answered all of the points that were made.
Perfectly.
If you want, Tim, if you give me the link, I'll put that in on our webpage with this podcast, and people can go and have a look at it. Or
I'll do that for you. And as I say, it's on the the Red Action. The guys, there's only a few of them, and they do put a great amount of effort into trying to improve the atmosphere at the Emirates. And on their Twitter page, they're the guys who've led this, and they're pushing it out there. And I'll give that to you to pass on to people. Okay. But I'll just keep going on this kind of thing. Last season we had 180,000 empty seats over the season. That's the equivalent of 3 games completely empty. Just imagine what good could have been done, making sure they got into the hands of like local youngsters who are priced out, could come in, start supporting Arsenal. And also, we all know that if you're 15, 16, you're probably making more noise and getting behind the more than you are when you're getting like into your late 30s, 40s like me. I know I'm not as noisy as I was in the ground 20 years ago. Probably one of those that joins in more now rather than starting it. And we've got to have the balance right. We've got to get in some of those youngsters and some of the different demographics and make Arsenal a bit more of a cauldron, because we don't exactly create that kind of that 1-0 start with the noise at the Emirates, do we?
Okay, and just to follow up there, Tim, obviously very interesting point you make around the ticket exchange and the need for Arsenal to improve the ticket exchange. But what's the position of, say, yourself and the Arsenal Supporters Trust on encouraging fans to actually put their tickets on the exchange? I mean, how is it around positive
We've got a specific
reinforcement?
policy idea on that, which is that we think that Arsenal should start awarding home credits. At the moment that you get away credits, and people understand it. And if you have more away credits, you get a higher priority. And when we get to a cup final with a certain number of credits, you get priority for tickets. I think it should be extended to home credits. Someone who's used their season ticket, and it doesn't mean it has to be you, but it means that if you can't go, you have to get your season ticket into the hands of somebody else so they use it, so the seat's full and the atmosphere is good. Someone who's been to 27 home games in a season and made sure that season ticket is used, I think should get priority over the 800 people who only used their season ticket once last year. And that is true. 800 people who came once, largely in club level. But who should we be giving priority to? Those that come and support the team. Those who turn out, for an early kickoff against Aston Villa when it's freezing cold and it's live on TV. Let's give them a reward for doing that. So a very specific idea. Give people credits for home games. And the other thing, if I keep going while I'm on a roll, the ticket exchange is so out of date. I think it switches off like 36 hours before the game. It should be running up to like 2 hours before the game. You should be able to, on your iPhone, log into the Arsenal Exchange app and move your ticket on to someone else. If you wake up with a sore throat or a hangover or the car won't start or the kids are ill and you can't get to the game, you can't do anything about passing that ticket on. Let's get into the modern ages and let's have 60,000 genuinely in the stadium every game getting behind the Arsenal team, because it will all make us feel better, and most importantly, it will make the lads play better.
Well said, well said. I've got, in fact, that's very well said, because as somebody like myself, Tim, coming from Plymouth, which is a fair old trek, it would be nice to know that sometimes I could plan my journey to come up to London with the off chance that I could still get a ticket even if I came up on the day. So I think that's an excellent point. I just wanted to ask you on the atmosphere. Do you subscribe? It's a fairly straightforward question. Do you subscribe to this? In my opinion, what's the word? Well, in my opinion, it's not true. Do you think that people physically can't sing or make noise when they're sat down?
It's a lot harder. It's a lot harder. Do you know, someone said something to me, who was it who said it to me, but it's such a good point. When you go to church, I don't go very often, but we all do the odd wedding and things like that. What happens when the hymns come on? What do you do?
Yeah, you stand up, yeah.
Yeah, so even in church, they don't expect you. And someone told me it's actually physiological. When you stand up, you your lungs expand a bit and you're actually more capable to sing and it feels more natural. And so clearly it's not impossible to sing sitting down. But if you actually think about it, part of the psyche of singing, of making noise, particularly when you're chanting, which is all about doing something together and aiming it at someone else, standing up is definitely a part of it. And that's why I also think the club should be looking at safe standing to improve the atmosphere and helping getting going. But yeah, I absolutely do think there's a bit of a correlation between them.
And just on that, just something that also popped into my head that I was going to ask you as well. Just on that side of things, and maybe not so much the singing, but making sort of noise or voicing opinion. Do you think that, I've noticed this myself when I've gone up to games this year, that when you are not a fan that's there every week, so therefore you're not necessarily seeing the same people in the same seats as you would if you were a regular, do you think that some of our fans are actually afraid to speak up, are afraid to support the club, are afraid to start a song, are afraid to back a player? I mean, I was at the Burnley game, courtesy of our own Andrew, actually, earlier on this season. And there was a number of people around me that Arteta was particularly flavour of the month for abuse on that day, as he has been most of the season. And I really felt that at times I really wanted to sort of say something and sort of say, well, actually, he's not quote unquote shit because he's a Premier League footballer, and I just don't think you appreciate the game enough. So, you're labelling him as shit because you don't really understand the game. Do you think that extends to some fans? Do you think that they just sort of go and think, oh, I want to watch the game, but I really don't want to say anything because I don't want to either sort of cause some unrest or get abuse?
I don't think there's too much of that. I understand the question. I think what is much more of an issue is the fact that you can't easily congregate with others that are like-minded, even if it is just wanting to sing. I started off going to Arsenal, you probably did as well, when there was the North Bank and everyone could kind of pack into the same area who wanted to make the noise, and you kind of could find, if you like-minded people, and you could do the same thing, and that's where the noise came from, and it grew. Whereas now you'll find little pockets of them, and it is harder if you're in a little pocket on your own and you get up and you try and start getting a chant going and the people around you don't. After a certain while, you can't keep that going, and it's noticeable. But this is again part of the problem with pre-allocated seats, the all-seater stadium and the way it's done now. Another thing is, because we all know we've got our seat, we don't go in until 1 minute to 3, do we? Back on the North Bank, I remember you had to get there at 2 o'clock to make sure you were in the queue to get in. You got in by like 2:30, the ground was full, and you started making the noise, and it built up to like a crescendo. You don't get that anymore. You don't get the big build up to kick off. No one's in the ground. Have a look around what it's like 5 minutes before kickoff at the Emirates. And you're like, Christ, there's 20,000 people in their seats, because everyone comes through very late. So there are certain things about the all-seater stadium, the all-ticket games that have made it harder. And I think your point's a good one. We need some unreserved seating so that people want to go, like, a bit like the Red Action area. But you can't get into that now, can you? You can't go and join in with it. It's just season ticket holders and blocked out. These are the sort of things that if a club wanted to, they could have a go at rearranging things and sorting things out. And I think they have to try, because sometimes it feels like you're at the theatre, not at a football match now. It really is bad.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And personally, from my point of view, I like the build-up. I like to get in the ground with half an hour to spare, just sort of read the programme, announce the teams and all that. But
you're on your own these days, aren't you? You really are on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got plenty of space to move, and also even the trivial things like when you take your seat, and you've got several people arriving late, you've then got to get up. The whole row's got to get up, and granted, that's very first world problems, but it all affects the sort of enjoyment if you're having to constantly get up and down with people getting in late. I don't, as you say, if we were all in there at the same time, or if there was all a band of groups together, there'd be a better atmosphere at kickoff. But that was me done. I'll hand across to Danny, because I think Danny wanted to ask something as well.
Yeah, is there any point asking you about the NFL new thing, Tim? Because there's a bit of an article from the BBC here, which is a month old, which I've not really had anybody I can ask. So if I read it out, would you like to say anything about it?
Can you? I don't know. Go on.
Okay. It says Stan Kroenke, Arsenal shareholder behind NFL stadium plan. Arsenal shareholder Stan Kroenke is set to invest in a major new development deal, which could see his NFL team, which is the St. Louis Rams franchise, return to Los Angeles, according to the LA Times. Los Angeles is the United States' second city, but does not currently have an NFL team. Kroenke owns the Rams NFL, who are currently based in St. Louis, but were located in Los Angeles until 1984. The American plans to build an 80,000-seater stadium in Inglewood, the Inglewood suburb. He is currently major shareholder at Arsenal, owning 66.94% of the club. Inglewood Mayor James Butt said, Mayor James Butt said, the proposal doesn't ask for, nor will ever be offered, any public funds. So what you have here is a developer, Stan Kroenke, who has invested in Inglewood, and we are glad to have him here. And the final bit, Kroenke has partnered with real estate firm Stockbridge Capital Group, which owns a 238-acre Hollywood site in Inglewood. So I've read a few other bits about this, saying that he may well sell up his shares in Arsenal to fund this, because an 80,000-seater stadium doesn't build itself. He's not going to get any kind of funding for it, so it's going to have to be all done himself. Knowing the finances at Arsenal, do you think that he can afford to do that and keep his Arsenal shares, or do you reckon there's any chance that he will have to sell up to Usmanov?
I don't think he'll have to sell up. I think the way you build stadiums in the States, you'd be perfectly fine to bring in debt to do that. And also, no doubt, you're saying there that there'll be no public money, but they often do lean on the authorities over there. I'd be very, very surprised if it meant a change in ownership at Arsenal. But what it does say, and what it reiterates, that Stan Kroenke is an investor. He owns sports teams to make money. He'd quite happily move this team. St. Louis is his home team, but he'll quite happily move them thousands of miles to go into a position where it will make his franchise more money. Don't think that if Stan Kroenke got an offer for Arsenal to play, a home game in Hong Kong for £20 million, that he'd blink. It's not a custodianship ownership approach. It's an ownership approach about making money. And that's how he will operate going forward. So I think there are lessons in his mindset in doing this, but I don't think it will lead to any immediate change in us as Arsenal Football Club and who we're owned by.
Also, just to jump in there, obviously, Stan Kroenke is a guy who's worth $5.8 billion. he doesn't need to sell his stake. And I mean, his stake in Arsenal is probably what one fifth of his wealth, Tim. I think also one thing that's been mentioned before by certain journalists is, and one thing that's been muted by journalists is the fact that with Arsenal, given the net debt position in Arsenal is constantly lowering, it means that the way in which you kind of would analyse his portfolio, the risk in his portfolio, the debt in his portfolio, it means that Arsenal actually, as an enterprise, brings down his gearing ratio. So therefore, it's less of a risk for investors. So when people do build things like stadiums, for example, a lot of it's done from capital expenditure. So some of that will be through raising debt in the bond market. So you might say, for example, we're going to issue debt. We're going to put $100 million of 10-year bonds out into the market, and so they have to pay a coupon on that every year. And so if you're less risky to the market, that coupon's going to be lower. And so having Arsenal in his portfolio actually means it's cheaper for Stan Kroenke to raise debt, because the fact is, as a business, we bring down his gearing because we're such a cash rich, net debt low company, that it's almost more beneficial for him to have Arsenal on his books than to not, if he is looking to build another stadium in America.
Yes. That's absolutely, Andrew. All of that makes sense. And of course, Arsenal was a very shrewd investment for Stan Kroenke, and it's perhaps what's worried some of us. He's been around for a few years now. We haven't managed to come any higher than fourth, but the value of Arsenal keeps going up and up because the value of Premier League football keeps going up and up. These next TV figures are going to, blow away the last TV figures. And that's what he really invested in. He invested in Arsenal as a media rights business, as the most watched sport in the world. And look how it continues to grow, including in his home market. He'll be absolutely delighted with the purchase. It's added to his overall asset value, and as Andrew says, he can leverage that in doing other deals. But understand that Stan Kroenke owns Arsenal to make money, not because Stan Kroenke loves Arsenal.
Because he also owns Colorado Rapids in the MLS, and they recently hired a plane, this was the end of last season, to fly, much like other teams have done, to fly a banner over the ground which said, "You have wrecked our club," KSE, which is Kroenke, what's the other two letters stand for?
Sports Enterprises.
Yeah, and Hinchy out. So they're absolutely furious with him there. And I don't think he's going to give up the Colorado Rapids anytime soon, because there's just been a massive financial input into MLS for TV money, which is meaning that all our American fans and are going to get more money charged for them for watching TV, for watching the games. They've been put on different stations. It's like other Jeff was saying that he lives in Canada, and some of the things he can't see now. Like one of I think other Jason was saying that he can't see the League Cup, and Jeff was saying he can't see the FA Cup games. They're just moving all around, and there's so much money coming in from everywhere for him. He must be like a pig in shit now. He's got so much stuff.
I guess it throws up the question: who actually pays for his wig? Is it Arsenal fans or is it the Rapids fans?
I think they're Donald Trump's old ones.
I'm going to go, doesn't he own Denver Nuggets as well?
Yes.
Yeah, so, probably I'd say the Denver Nuggets fans.
You're a nugget.
If there are any Nuggets fans out there, of course.
£3 must buy you a good assortment of wigs, I'd have thought.
I've heard Danny's a fan of chicken nuggets. Oh, sorry, Denver Nuggets. Sorry, my bad.
Actually, I don't eat chicken nuggets. They're mechanically recovered chicken. Yuck.
Oh, Jesus, this is going downhill. Our next topic of discussion is all about the NLD. We've heard the news today that Sanchez is not going to be fit to take part in the game. So should we all be worried? Danny?
Someone did actually ask us a Twitter question. Do we think this is going to mean he could be out for the season? Now, I don't know if they were taking a piss or anything, but no, I'm not worried. I'd rather not play him, because just think he's going to have the kick shitted out of him. Well, you know what I mean? I don't know why my brain did that back to front. No, I think it's good that he's having a bit of a rest. He's probably going to be putting his feet up, and he will be applauding all 6 goals like we all will do for us.
And I said before the podcast that you know what? There's still a part of me that wouldn't be surprised that if Alexis' name was on the team sheet for Saturday, there wasn't a part of me that would go, "Oh, that's amazing." Kris, do you think this is 100% real and all mind games, or?
I mean, it's tough to say, because Arsene will keep things close to his chest. I was actually, as you were speaking there, just looking at Stuart McFarlane and David Price's picture streams to see if there was any sign of him in training today, and apparently he's doing, according to Arsene Wenger, light training. But interestingly, there's no pictures of the players training that I can see from today. So, I mean, it wouldn't it wouldn't surprise me to see him in the squad, probably from the bench. But equally, like Danny says, I mean, we have to sort of get out of this mentality of no Sanchez, no party. You know, we've got players banging form. Santi Cazorla, Giroud, Ozil, Walcott coming back to form. You know, we've got other options. And let's be honest, it's that shower shit. So, we should in theory be able to turn up with a decent lineup and still beat them. I did actually want to give a nod to this. There was 3 questions that came our way with regards to Alexis. There might even have been more. I'll check those in a minute. But we had Tyrone who said thoughts on Alexis missing the North London derby after being pivotal for most of the season. We had A Ahad J, who's at AB Guna. He said people quick to suggest Sanchez coming on versus Brighton caused the injury, whereas I think it's just bad luck. What's your thoughts? And also Gunner at Gunner 0708. Thoughts on Alexis' recent injury? Will we miss him as badly as anyone think we will? With Danny Welbeck back as well. I should mention as well, Tyrone was at Tyrone_718. But yeah, I mean, I think it's. I think we can beat them without him. Obviously, we're a better side with him. That's stating the obvious to a high level. But would I be surprised to see him in the squad? Not especially, but then equally, Arsene has started telling the truth a lot recently, as people have noticed in his transfer discussion. So I think he probably will miss the game, but I wouldn't be shocked if he did turn up on the bench on the day.
And if we have no Alexis, then it looks like Walcott will carry on playing, which, Andrew, we all know he has a fantastic record against that shit up the road. Are you worried, and do you think we should stick with the same team that spanked Villa?
Yeah, I don't see why you would change that winning formula. The only way I would change it is if Chamberlain was fit. I'd play him ahead of Walcott. Obviously, he's not. So yeah, I think the team certainly are going to go into the game with a lot of confidence. There's certainly the correct level of balance in midfield. I'm pretty happy that Santi Cazorla started down the middle. I think I'm glad Wenger's kept Santi there. I think obviously we didn't really see the best of Santi last season, whereas the year before he was a fantastic player for us. And I maintain he's the reason we got in the Champions League that year, because we kept him in that kind of that central number 10 position. And I think it's only fair after the form he's shown with Ozil being out injured and the confidence he's regained that we maintain him in that position and keep Ozil out left. I know that's quite a controversial subject, but I think we're seeing the best out of Santi, and so I wouldn't drop him or I wouldn't move him for that reason. So I'd definitely play the same team as last week if Sanchez isn't available, and obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Chamberlain, who isn't. So I think it'd be daft to make any changes to that squad from last weekend.
And Tim, Andrew touched on it there, that it might be a bit of a risk playing Ozil out on the left. Do you think it's a risk?
Yes, I do in a game like that, and I worry about that position and like Andrew said, the Walcott position. Can you kind of get away with both of them in a game as physical as this, where getting stuck in, where covering your flank is going to be so important? And I do wonder whether there's any option. If Welbeck were a little bit fitter, I wonder if I'd play Welbeck on the left more than Ozil, because you will actually get more of that shift, won't you? You're putting a bigger unit in there, a stronger unit in there. And Santi has played great, but I just wonder whether that's a bit of a lightweight team. And so clearly, if the Ox was fit, that would be the player that would go in as well to give you a little bit more tempo and muscle. But I think it probably is the team that goes in. And look, that's a good lineup for us. But the match fitness situation with Ozil and Walcott, and they're sort of, neither of them are exactly, you're tracking back, put in a shift, use your weight, get stuck into a game like that. Just worry a little bit about if there's enough fight and strength in there for a derby game. I don't know what the others think.
I think there's also some talk about Rosicky in there. Kris, did we have a Facebook question regarding that?
It was actually a tweet, but I just suddenly glanced through the questions I got in front of me there, and I'll give credit where credit's due. Emma MBA at Arsenal 4 Life, that's Life with 2 Fs. They said with Sanchez out of the lineup is obvious. With Sanchez out of the lineup, obvious. If were you a Wenger, would you start Rosicky, and who should he replace? And that was the name that, funnily enough, me and Andrew both put in the box here to bring up. I would start Rosicky. We saw what he did at that horrible gaff last year. He's a guy that sort of keeps us on the front foot. He tends to drive us forward. the big question then would be who would he play instead of? And for me, it would probably be Theo. Exactly. Yeah, I think Theo's getting there, and there were signs last week with that goal with the drop of the shoulder that there are signs that the old Theo's coming back. But with this game at this level of intensity, Rosicky was left out of the lineup from the start last week, so I wouldn't be at all surprised if he was the one to come in. And if it was my decision, I would put Rosicky in ahead of Theo.
I think that's certainly an excellent. Sorry to jump in there. Excellent question there by Emma. So I'll give her my number at the end of the pod. I think what Kris is touching up on there actually, and one thing we kind of mentioned, what Tim mentioned earlier around the defensive duties needed in this game, and why it would be a good idea to replacing Sanchez's presence in the team for Rosicki's is that what they do very well is that that they'll press very high up the field, and as a team, Arsenal, tactically we don't do that. We see teams like Barcelona have done that very well. We've seen Dortmund do that well in their successful years. We saw Man United do that in their successful years. Arsenal have never really pressed high up the pitch, but we always play much better when we do because it restricts teams. Teams usually tend to press against us. It restricts them hitting us on the counter-attack and where we've been vulnerable in years. We say that the defending in a team should always start high up the pitch. It shouldn't be Koscielny to be our first defender. Rosicky certainly gives us that, and Sanchez always gives us that. So I think if we have that, especially in a North London derby, we're able to pin Spurs back away from home, I think it would give us an extra advantage. And we saw, and it wasn't just last season, he always plays brilliantly against Spurs. I think he's scored in 3 or 4 games now for us, Rosicky. He certainly always rises to the challenge. But to be able to defend from the front, I think is going to be one of the key battles in the North London derby. It's certainly away from home for us. Last year I think we took a lot of pressure from them, and we almost got lucky in a few times. I think Gibbs had an absolute shocker last year when we played them away. But with Rosicky leading the midfield, I'd have a lot more confidence than what I would Walcott. Even though we might have less of an edge in the final third, I think we'd be a lot more solid and a lot more balanced in the team.
But I think pretty much the way we've seen Arsenal play their football over the last 5 games has changed with Coquelin coming in. And also, I don't know if any of you have noticed, but we've also seen Santi Cazorla drop back as well and play some part of that defensive role within the team. I mean, having him doing that and breaking forward and almost being a bit of a box-to-box with Ramsey having the space to work his magic across the midfield as well. It's seen us comfortable at the back, but then we can go forward and really cause other teams some problems, especially when they're on the back foot if they're attacking us. Danny, have you noticed us doing this recently and Santi Cazorla doing maybe a bit more of a defensive job?
I certainly have done. I've just been looking that he's our second best assist maker in the league this season with 7, along with Sanchez. I think it's just amazing. It just shows the range of passing and defending and the number of tools he has in his workman's tool belt of abilities that he has. For someone so small, he does so much hard work. Whether he's like dropping back, like you said, defending, recovering the ball, passing it up, and then when as a defender or a midfielder, when he's running at you, he's ambidextrous foot-wise. I'm sure there must be a word for ambidextrous for your feet. Don't say 2-footed this last time. Ambidextrous usually means you can use both hands. I wonder if there's one for feet. Anyway, this was me thinking out loud. So he's coming at you. You're going to be thinking, well, he can go left or right. I don't know. He's got a 50% chance of getting it right, or they just try and hack him down, and then he's got the quietest feet in football, and he'll just launch up into the air and fly past you. So his abilities this season are just absolutely amazing, and I'm just over the moon with how much he had, because his first season he was brilliant, and I think that because he had the free role, the second season he didn't have the free role, Ozil did, and his third season you thought, it's just going to be. He wasn't getting many games at the beginning of the season, but I think now he has shown his adaptability to do whatever Wenger wants him to do, whether it's the 10 role, whether it's either wing, whether it's a central midfield role. The bloke is just twinkle toes. We all love him.
And Kris, I know you wanted to mention a small bit on my last question.
Yeah, I wanted to just bring up you mentioned earlier on Match of the Day 2 last week, and I was watching Martin Keown talk about, during the Villa game, the triangles. It was the triangle that now exists between Coquelin, Ramsey and Cazorla. I'm not just saying this because it's Martin Keown and I love him.
I saw that Match of the Day as well.
It was fantastic, wasn't it? It really was, and it just demonstrates. And I think Tim picked up on this earlier on when we talked about Coquelin. It's just telling somebody to do a simple job and them doing it. And the thing that I really like about both Ramsey and Cazorla. Granted, they're never going to go flying into challenges, but then that is Coquelin's job, and he's doing that very well. But what I really like about Cazorla and Ramsey is that they're both very technically and very skilled footballers. They know how to use the ball, and I think sometimes I see a lot of it at my level of football where a player picks up the ball just in front of the defence or just in the centre circle, and without any thought, it's just an aimless punt forward. Which if you notice, Villa did an awful lot of in that game against us. There was no options. When you've got players as technically gifted as Santi and Aaron Ramsey, you have that ability to say to one of them, right, when one of them goes, you just sit in that midfield and you orchestrate and let the other one bomb on. And during that, I would encourage anyone to look up the analysis. It was on the BBC. Martin Keown just displayed how we've now got this triangle, and it's almost like those three players seem to be getting a real understanding of when to go, when to sit, when to bomb on, when to drop, and it works really, really well. And I think particularly when you're playing against a side like Spurs, who generally will try and hit us on the counter attack. Pochettino's got them very fit, so they obviously play quite a high tempo throughout the game, but they reserve a lot of their energies for the latter part of games. I think there's a real potential for us to hit them on the counter attack, as well as we did all those years ago when you had the sort of the Vieira goal, famously in the Invincible season. That was a sort of a counter attacking goal, and I think you could get at them if you do that. It's just going to put a lot of responsibility on Coquelin to win those tackles, but he's done it against Man City of a higher level opposition. So yeah, it's a really, really great point playing Cazorla there. And I think if you'd have said to anyone pre-season Santi Cazorla is going to be not so much a holder, but he's going to be sitting in the middle of midfield and just sort of pulling the strings from that position, I don't think anyone would have seen him doing that. And it's not a coincidence that Aaron Ramsey's become, or has got part of his form back, not so much his goals, but he's getting his form back playing in that position, being able to just sort of tippy-tappy around with Cazorla and break forward as and when he gets the chance.
I've got a question on that for you. Do you think that if Wilshere came in and replaced Santi, that because Wilshere's a very greedy, selfish player, do you think that system would fall apart if Wilshere came in to replace Santi as soon as he's fit? Because that was a
yes.
That was a Twitter question. Hold on, here we go. Someone's sing while I find it. The Arsenal bus says, how quick do you think Coquelin will be dropped for Wenger's favourite Jack Wilshere when he returns?
No, he won't be, I don't think. Because they're two different types of players.
Yeah, I was thinking of a different thing. I was thinking that when Wilshere comes back, he might try and replace Santi with Wilshere. Possibly, but for me, like Santi Cazorla should be one of the first names on that team sheet right now. I mean, this is he's been so good, and it's not just about his penalty taking abilities or his ability to do a little trick and a little hop, skip, and a jump after putting a cross in. It's the way he moves the ball, it's the tempo he plays at, it's that the ability that when a player is running into a cul-de-sac or running into an area where they don't think they can release a pass, Santi Cazorla is one of those players, dare I say it, since a certain number 4 at Chelsea, that just has complete belief on both feet that he can receive the ball, and no matter what area of the pitch he's in, he's able to turn, get it out of his feet and set us on the counter-attack. Jack Wilshere, with all due respect, is not good enough at that. Jack Wilshere's game is based around that sort of explosive power, sort of running on into the box, which a lot like Ramsey was last year, or it's about getting his foot in. The trouble with Jack is that arguably he's played better for England because he's played in that holding role, but it's pretty clear to us at the moment that Arsene Wenger doesn't see him in that role. Arsene does see him as this sort of metronome in the midfield who can pull the strings. But in my opinion, he's nowhere near the level that Santi Cazorla is. And if you're going to pull Santi Cazorla out of that position, arguably Aaron Ramsey should be the one going into that position, not Jack Wilshere. So, Jack's going to have to be really patient, and it might be more of an injury situation that gets him back into the side over a positional change or for dropping somebody, because whether you thought he was going to be or not, Coquelin has fast become one of the most important players in our midfield. Again, like Tim said, just by doing the simple thing. And if there's one thing that Jack Wilshere isn't always the best at doing, it's the simple thing.
And I understand we've got some questions on Jack Wilshere and his off-the-field antics coming up this week, which we will talk about in some depth. But talking about Coquelin there, I wanted to give you all a quote that he came out with. When you play for Arsenal against Tottenham, it's not about just playing your game. It's about winning. You have to win it. And surely that's the attitude we want to install in these players. And Andrew, I'll come to you. We've had Dave Hillier and Anders Limpar on the show in recent weeks, in the last couple of months, and they've all said how important that game is as a player. Just how up for do you think that these players will be for it on Saturday, and how important is it to you as a fan to see us beat them?
I think it's one of the games which, one of the few games where you can say the Arsenal players always rise to the occasion. One thing that's been questioned about Arsene Wenger's Arsenal in recent years is whether they've been able to beat the top teams consistently, and we know for a fact that they haven't. However, when it comes to Tottenham, the players very rarely lose. I mean, I know we've had the odd shockers here and there when we've been 4-2 up and we've ended up drawing 4-2. We lost that game away in the Cup 5-1 in the semi-final. We lost at home 3-2. But it's very rare do we lose at Spurs. The majority of the time we win, and we win comfortably. It's something, the North London derby is usually one of the most electric games of the season, and not just for Arsenal, but across the Premier League. And one thing you have to give credit to Arsene Wenger for is just the way in which he G's up the team, and also the fans. Whether it's home or away, the Emirates is always a lot more vociferous at home, a lot more loud, a lot more passion from the fans, and the away fans. Some of the, if not the best away fans in the league. So credit to those guys. And I think the players always give their very best when we're playing against Tottenham, and you can never ever doubt them for that. Sometimes against Chelsea, sometimes against Man City, Man United, they look scared, they look trepid, they look like they don't feel they deserve to be on the same pitch. But you can never question or you rarely ever feel like you can question the commitment from our lads in the North London derby. And I'm sure they kind of, obviously, players. It's a globalised game now. Players, very few of the players, understand the emotions or have felt the emotions of a North London derby before coming to our club. But you can see what it means to these players. You see these words from Coquelin. You see during the game. You see the way someone like Per Mertesacker, for example, after games will go and clap the fans even more, especially than he does after normal games, after North London derbies. You can see the passion when we win these sorts of games, and kind of the fans and the way we feel manifests and radiates throughout the players, I feel, in these sorts of games. As I mentioned before, players like Rosicky always steps up. Fabregas used to step up for us in every North London derby. I think it's one thing that we do well as a club. It's one of the few big games where I go in. I always feel nervous ahead of North London derbies because I hate the idea of losing to those guys. But it's one of the few games where I think, we might, if not probably will lose it. I'm always relatively confident going into these games, only on the fact that Arsenal have such a great record in recent years, and because the players always raise it. You can see what it means to the players. You saw Walcott last year full of jovial antics when he was sticking his two fingers up to let the Tottenham fans know what was happening, even though he had a barrage of pennies being thrown at him. And I think we're going to give a great account of ourselves on the weekend again, despite going to a hate or a cauldron of hatred. I think they'll raise it.
And Tim, we'll come to you. Of course, we know that Alexis probably won't play in this game. Do you think it's sad that he's going to miss out on a North London derby and that atmosphere of playing at their ground? I mean, surely that the hatred and the pressure is on even more when we play away to them. Do you think that it's sad that he's going to miss that?
No, it's not sad. It's more worrying because he is the best player over the season. And you want your best players in the big games, the ones that you've got to win. I suppose, you could call that sad, but I'm more worried, a bit like Andrew, but maybe a slightly different view. This is a game that always terrifies me because the thought of losing is so terrible. He's right that actually it's a very good record given how much the form book can go out of the window with a kind of just the scrap and the noise and what goes on in the game. We do usually perform well. If the players perform well, they can beat Spurs, but we've got to watch them. They got two or three very, very good players and then average around them, and we just got to keep an eye out for those very, very good players. And I think this is a big test. Like I said at the beginning, we've won all the games in January, games we should have won. It's good to see the form coming back and the confidence coming back. The City game was going against a trend, and I really feel that if we can beat Spurs, we knock them away for the season and we can pretty confidently look to that top four finish. If we don't win, I think we've got one hell of a scrap for the next few weeks because of the situation it will put us in and where it moves. So it is a huge game, and personally, I'd be happy if Sanchez was playing. But we've got with Theo and Ozil available to go around Santi, whether they all play at the same time, but we've got enough quality to make the difference.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll finish this off then, as always, by doing predictions before we go to Facebook and Twitter questions. So, Danny, if I could have your prediction for this one, please.
Oh, I'm going to go 4-1 to us, and the first goal scorer... maybe Theo. Oh, that'd be great, wouldn't it? If he plays. Yeah, that'll do 4-1.
Okie dokie. Kris?
Sorry, muted there. It's such a tough one to predict, isn't it? I'll keep it tight. Let's say 2-1. And I'll go first scorer. I think Danny Welbeck might get one.
Okay, Andrew?
Fuck it, let's go bullish. I'm going to say 3-0 Arsenal, and the first goal scorer is going to be Olivier Giroud.
Tim?
Oh, I just can't jinx it. So I'm going to go for 1-1 and hope I get it wrong. And the first goal scorer will be Ramsey.
Fantastic. And I'm going to go 4-2 to the Arsenal with Giroud for scorer. I must finish this as well by saying the other news, and something very positive, is Bielik seems to be impressing in training at the moment, and it looks like he's going to get a start against Newcastle in the reserves. And it also looks like Serge Gnabry is going to come back and play as well. So that's other positive news there. But we'll go straight over to Danny to finish the show off, and Kris with some Twitter and Facebook questions. So, Danny and Kris, over to you.
Okay, I'll start off. From Chief Planky, do you think Ozil's good performance on Sunday at left wing, or left-sided midfield, will make Wenger see him as a left winger more than a 10, and therefore... Well, I didn't cut and paste the second part of his question.
Jesus Christ!
Well, I didn't know it was bloody 2-part.
This is where it goes downhill. You realise that we've had like an hour and 20 minutes of superb content for you to take this over and do Facebook questions, and for it to just shit.
Because it was above
Turncoat.
it. Okay, right, because I was reading it and it's not above it. Do you think it will spout the play Ozil at 10 trend again? So, and therefore, right, so do you think people are going to go mental? Gim, did you understand the question?
No, not necessarily. I was just writing the end of the podcast. So.
All right, look at you working as you.
Well, I was doing my shout out. I was
okay.
seeing desperately who gets my shout out.
Okay.
Chris, say Chris understood it.
I think I sort of understood it. Yeah. The straight answer is probably no, because I think I've said it before in this parish, and I'll continue to say it. Players playing in certain positions in 2015 is a myth. If you're a good enough player, and if you understand the instructions well enough, and if your system allows fluidity, there's a word for you, then he's got the license to cut inside. And if you've got the discipline and the players around you who know that if you do bomb on, that somebody else covers into your position, it should be no issue. I think, I'm a big fan of Mesut Ozil, but I genuinely think this whole playing him at number 10 is a bit of a myth. As long as you say to him, yeah, you can pretty much play wherever you like within reason, as long as you do your defensive duties, or as long as you drop back when we're out of possession. When we're in possession, he can go anywhere across those front three. So no, I don't think it makes a huge difference. All it makes a difference is to where Sky put him when they put some graphics out, that's all.
Tim, I was looking at comparing the last time he played out wide left. No, I think it was Welbeck who was started on the left, and he spent most of his time on the heat map playing in towards the middle. I looked at Ozil's heat map from the Villa game. Most of it, the biggest part of it, about 70%, was on the left-hand side of the centre spot, but inside the box. So do you think that's going to be a problem, or do you think no matter where you play Ozil, he's just going to drift in anyway?
I think against Villa, my heat Matt would have looked quite impressive because he strolled around wherever you
You
wanted.
had your scarf and gloves on.
Yeah, exactly. Probably there was more heat going on where I was sitting than one or two of those Villa defenders. The longer term issue though is quite a big one for Arsenal, and it's going to be really interesting to see if against Villa at home, Wenger correctly judged that you could, if you get away might be the wrong word, but the quality of those players, it would be fine. Can you carry or cope with Ozil in that position, given the role he has to play against Spurs? I think it's touch and go, but it does require work from others around him. And it's going to be really interesting, isn't it, what happens with Ozil now and Cazorla playing so well? Because I've always felt that Ozil was a player that to a certain extent you built your team around or he wasn't in it. And where do you go now with that? Can he fit in it, not being the star man and letting Santi, who has done much better and I think is probably more combative and more all-round for Premier League type of play than Ozil ever will be? I think it's fascinating, and I think Ozil will probably do one more year at Arsenal, but I think it might be quite interesting to see if there's a big offer from Germany at the end of this window. I don't know, Andrew, what you think, but something's got to be resolved there, and it's not necessarily stacking up in Ozil's favour at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think I agree completely with that, there, Tim. That bringing it back to what the original question was, and against your answer, whether Ozil's performances on the left wing have convinced Wenger that he's good enough to be on the left wing. As you said to Wenger, is actually no. The reason he's playing on the left wing is because of the fine form Santi's shown down the middle.
He's put out there. He's put out there because he can't play in the other position, or he's not doing the role that's wanted in the other position.
Yeah. Why would you drop Santi when he's playing as well as he is? He's driving the team forward, as you say. He's been combative. He's getting back. He holds the ball up very well in the middle, and Santi's undoubtedly much better when he's playing as the number 10, just like Ozil, for example. But Santi's in fine form at the moment. The team is being driven by his movement and his vision. So I don't see why you would change that just because Ozil's back. It may be in time where if Santi picks up an injury, Santi needs resting or dropping, you have that option there and you have that depth in the squad with Ozil. But I wouldn't necessarily just change the tactics and the winning formula because someone's back. I mean, Ozil's clearly a fantastically gifted player and he's got enough ability to add value to the team even from the left wing. But I think the way we stand at the moment, it wouldn't make sense to me to drop Santi from that number 10 position when he's playing so well there and he's shown the confidence that he is.
But I think the thing is you've got to look at as well is Santi isn't getting any younger, and Ozil will eventually play that position, if he carries on at Arsenal, and I can't see, bar anything catastrophically bad happening, that he wouldn't still be here to take over the reins in that position.
Yeah, of course, but I don't think Santi's going to start losing any pace in his game in the next few games. Just while it is at the moment, we're playing so well and the confidence is so high in the current formation that we're playing. I don't think it's going to make much difference, long term, to make this short term decision to keep Santi there. For me, it makes complete sense. He offers every much as bit as Ozil does in terms of his vision. And the two of them together in the same side is only going to be a benefit to Arsenal. But I think what we saw last year was when we actually sacrificed Cazorla and we played him out wide more often than not, it was detrimental to his game. So let's hopefully see that Ozil can raise his game and maintain a high standard out left, whilst allowing Santi to flourish in the middle.
No, sorry, Danny.
That's all right, don't worry about it. I'm just typing to you that we've been going 1 hour 27. So I'll do Chris question, me question, Chris question, and then we'll move on, yeah?
Yeah, we're pretty much done
Yeah.
Jesus, someone's been on the crystal meth.
Man.
May well have been
touched anything.
Oh, you've got your internet's all going wonky. Go on, Chris, question from you.
Cool. I'll just give one nod to one of the questions off my list, which I'll move on from. SQ Guna, which was at the Arsenal list, did ask if we should start Welbeck instead of Walcott for the Spurs game. We kind of covered that by saying we probably would start Rosicky, so kind of answered that one, but I just wanted to give him a nod. I will go with a Facebook question, which is, we'll go with Holden Coggill. That's a great name, Holden. Given the form of Bellerin and new signing Gabriel, or potentially form of Gabriel, we should say, where does this leave Callum Chambers? Does this leave him as a fourth choice centre back or third choice right back if you include Debussy as one and Bellerin as two? Tim, you have a go at that one?
I think it's interesting. I think it probably just leaves him as third choice centre back if the game really mattered. But the Wenger will be looking to play Gabriel, when he can, because he's got to be bedded in, hasn't he? He's got to have a go. It and it's not necessarily a bad thing that Callum Chambers gets a bit of a rest, a bit of time to work out what his best position is. And he's a good kid, isn't he? And he's got a long-term future. But I think next year it's far more likely that he'll play 15 games rather than 35 games for Arsenal. He's not, and to me, he's not the fullback that modern football and particularly teams like Arsenal require in the way that we play, particularly that wing play, that pace, that the way that it's used to get to the byline. And so I think I see his long-term position being in the centre half position, where you do have to usually be a bit older and have learnt your positioning and matured a bit more. So I think he'll grow into that role, but we won't see as much of him. He was a bit overused in the first 6 months.
Yeah, I agree with that. Danny, should we just ask a question and get one person to answer each time so we can rattle through these? Would that be?
Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool. Over to you then, Danny.
Okay, my next question is, as Gimli is an expert on all things smokable, this is from Pat Duggan. No relation to Hackshaw Jim Duggan, I doubt. After Chesney being fined for smoking, do you think Wilshere is taking the piss, having been told off before about smoking?
Yeah, I do. I think he's massively taken the piss. I think as a player that you're paid extortionate wages to not only play football, but to make sure that you eat and drink and take the right things. I think if he's doing that, I mean, I don't know necessarily shisha, I know it's some form of flavoured tobacco or whatever it is. And, I think Shamak did it and got away with it for, as Andrew said at the start of the show, religious reasons. But I think it's not the first time, it's not the second time, it's the third time. He finds himself on the end of another injury. His form hasn't been spectacular in that Man United game. I don't think he lit the world up. I think he's going to really struggle to get into this team at the moment, and I think it's really complacent and petulant to go out and do that and be photographed like that. I mean, I understand players have got to let their hair down once in a while, but by doing that, I think really if you're scrutinising Chesney for it, then you can't really be on the fence. You've got to give Jack Wilshere both barrels for it. I know, as a smoker myself who used to play a bit of football, I used to know that I'd probably be able to now run to the end of the road before I'd be out of breath. And that's not because I'm unfit. That's because I smoke. Do you know what I mean? So the effects are there. And as a professional footballer, he should know better. And he's in the position where he should be setting an example to kids and fans alike. So he is bang out of order. What anybody says, regardless of if anyone says, it's only a little bit of that, it's nothing bad. Well, he's a fucking idiot. And he is a fucking idiot. And that's pretty much all I've got to say on it.
And that's the bottom line, because Gimli says so.
Get off the fence.
God, look at these wrestling things we're putting in here.
Yeah, brilliant, isn't it?
It's been a slobber knocker, Kris.
About 20 people will know what we're on about. I should also give a nudge to Chris Tebb, who also asked the Welbeck over Walcott role, but I'll just move on from that. There was a couple of people that brought up Wilshere on the Facebook group, so I'll just mention them as well. David Pledger brought up the same issue, so thank you, David. Chris Hoppy Hopkins, who also used the hashtag of Colin in the sock, which nod to him for that. But he asked the same. He said, essentially, is it the last time you can get caught for getting away with it? And rather amusingly, Shay Kaira said, in light of further smoking accusations, should we just link up with Marlborough and be done with it? Red and white, cream some cash out of them. It's the right colours as well.
Cowboy killers, that's what they're called.
Cowboy killers. So nod to Shay for that. In light, I'll go for another Wilshere question just while we're at it. Gimli's favourite, Michael Bulbeck.
Hey!
When fit, do you think Jack brings an unbalance or imbalance, whichever you prefer, to the team? And are we a better team without him? Andrew, you can have a go at that one.
Wilshere. Wilshere can be accommodated in any midfield. Let's not kind of lose sight here of Wilshere's abilities. And you can play Wilshere in the midfield and have a balanced midfield. It's just whether or not Wilshere suits the tactics which Wenger decides to pick. Yeah, if you look at the style Wilshere brings to the Arsenal, is he too dissimilar to someone like Emmanuel Petit? Okay, maybe he's less defensively solid. But in, say, a 4-4-2 midfield, I think you could accommodate Wilshere's style of play perfectly, without needing, to have certain. Like, he's not, someone like Steven Gerrard, for example, needed his game built around having two central midfielders behind him. Otherwise, the midfield was balanced at all times. I don't think Wilshere necessarily needs that kind of that support around him. He can quite easily be accommodated in a 4-4-2, even in a 4-2-3-1 with the correct holding midfielder next to him. I think that he's unfortunate in the sense that he isn't necessarily the disciplined holding midfielder that, say, Coquelin is, or who we want at Arsenal. And he's not quite as adventurous as Ramsey's shown to be in last year as that box-to-box midfielder. And he's never really progressed as the number 10, who we were hoping he was going to be when he first started out. But nonetheless, he's still a very good deep-lying playmaking midfielder. He still tracks forward quite well. His movement and vision is very solid. Sometimes you can say he holds on to the ball for too long. He runs into tackles and he picks up needless injuries, makes needless mistakes where he holds the ball too long. But overall, he's a player of fantastic ability. Whether his head's right completely there, I don't know. But I think to say whether we're an imbalanced team without him, I think is not necessarily the question. The best question is whether or not Arsene picks a team which Arsene plays him in a team whereby we find balance with his skills. I mean, obviously he's got the ability to play for Arsenal. Obviously he's good enough to play at that level. But whether Arsene Wenger decides to pick him amongst players which have kind of a strategic fit amongst one another is a completely different question. And I think that's more a question of Wenger's ability to pick a midfield than it is to put Wilshere in one.
Yeah, I think that's well answered. I've also given a nod to Luca, who also asked a very similar question. Friend of the pod, Luca. So, Bok to Luca.
Bok.
Is that Luka Kolukosic or Kolukusic?
That's the Badger.
Koluchos.
And Danny, I've got a few more, but I'll go back to you and see what else you got there.
Okay, a little bit of a fun one. If you could have, this is from Abhishk Lol. Oh, for God's sake!
It's like a child reading a book, isn't it?
How dare you.
Nigel, yeah.
If you could sign any one player from any Premier League team for Arsenal, who would that be? Who wants to go first, or who wants to pick this one? Tim, would you like that?
I would sign De Gea from Manchester United.
Ooh, controversial.
Davis is to go.
I heard a thing the other day that they've offered him $200,000 a week, but there's a rumour he might be moving.
I think Madrid will take him.
Yeah,
definitely.
He's the best young goalkeeper in the world. That's why I'd sign him.
He is, and I think with old Manuel Neuer against Wolfsburg showed that he's a bit of pressure. He's not the greatest. Well, this is where you tell me he didn't play in goal.
No, he did.
Yeah, I didn't see any of it, to my utter shame. Come on, Dortmund.
Can I just enter that one quickly?
Yes, go on.
Whoever it is, it wouldn't be Harry Kane. He looks like a young Bruce Forsyth.
Good game.
He's one of them monks. Should also nod to Bruce Schooner, who brought up a very similar question. Actually, he said, with Morales commenting on wanting Champions League football, would you welcome him? So there's another name to lob into that box.
Player, really, I think.
I wouldn't say he's average. I don't think he's Arsenal quality.
Where did he send that question to? On Twitter or Facebook?
That was Twitter.
Oh, he got a set one here as well from Bruce_Gooner about where does Welbeck fit in their future, left wing maybe, but I think we talked about that a little bit. He'll play wherever he can.
Yeah, let's do
Probably
another.
West Brom.
Well, I've got no more questions because I'm too lazy.
Oh, okay. Well, I've
got one more.
I've got a few more, but I'll try and rattle through. Should I do two quick ones?
Go on then.
Yeah, quick fire.
Okay, so Linus Nielsen, I got one. He says, "What's the most stupid thing that you've ever done related to Arsenal?" Everyone answer that just quickly. Most stupid thing you've ever done in relation to Arsenal.
I had the Freddie red streak through my hair.
So did I.
But unfortunately, I washed it out and it turned me ginger. So, I think a lot of people had the same problem. When Freddie came in, they wanted to dye their hair, have the Freddie streak, and a couple of days later, there was a lot of gingers walking around.
I had mine permanent, so think of me.
I think mine would be I gave up 4 season tickets after the first season at Ashburton because I was just pissed off with the stadium and the manager and selling players. I should have kept them all.
Boo. Tim?
Well, if you listen to my mum, it was pick my university so I could stay in London and keep watching Arsenal rather than pick the course that I wanted.
Fair play.
I thought that was maybe the best decision. It depends what category and where you're coming from.
And have you managed to do much hand gliding now that you've passed the hand gliding course?
It was all well worth it.
Oh, good. Sacrifice. Proper gooner, that's what you do.
I know that Pfeiffer's got a good one.
Yeah, go on.
Pfeiffer's going to
Right.
hit us with a cracker now.
Am I? No, I mean,
No.
obviously, I guess the silliest thing's obviously supporting Arsenal. I subscribed myself to a kind of a mini fandom, and now I wake up every morning to about 400 messages on my phone from Jason Davis, which I wouldn't have if I'd picked a superior or lesser team. So that was probably the most stupid thing I did. Yeah, let a fellow Arsenal fan my personal phone number, and now I feel slightly harassed every time I woke up.
So basically, you're saying the stupidest thing you've done as an Arsenal fan is give the sheep tickler Jason Davis your phone number.
Pretty much. I feel violated as an Arsenal fan.
Oh, Danny, let's have one more from you and Chris, and then let's get this good love train on the road.
Okay, do we want one about a statue? Yes, we do. Who do you think is going to be the next statue outside of the Emirates? I think it's going to have to be... maybe Wenger.
I think you're right. The head says Arsene Wenger. The heart probably says. That's a good question, isn't it?
What do your feet say, Adebayor?
Alberto Mendes?
No.
Head, heart, and arse. Your arse says Adebayor. And then someone will realise it's not actually a statue; it's him offside.
Well, if Alexis Sanchez carry on the way he's going, then he'll probably have a statue outside the Emirates before he's even retired.
Yeah. Is that good? Tim?
Arsene Wenger's kind of got one because he's got the bust in the entrance hall. I guess, does that count as half a statue? I think the era that's missing at the moment is kind of the 70-71 team, and I'd go for McClintock, but I doubt if the club would pick that. But that's kind of like, if you're filling in the gaps, that's one of the places that you'd go next, but perhaps that's not in enough for the sort of modern generation, and so much of it was done before television and everything. But my choice would be Frank McClintock, both for who he was, but also to represent that era.
You could have a Charlie George one.
I was just going to say that.
On it.
Well,
I was just going to say that. If you did Charlie George on his back like that, you'd have people humping him, wouldn't you? You couldn't do it.
Or you could have a Paul Merson on his back.
Where would the pole be sticking in him? He'd have to have two poles, wouldn't he?
Actually, if you had the Paul Merson one, you could have it as a fountain.
That would be brilliant. Rotational fountain, yeah. Quality.
Andrew, have you got anyone?
How about the chef? The night before we played, lasagna chef. That's one who spiked Spurs' dinner.
Oh, what we could have it as Anders Limpar, where he could be wearing the hat and could be the Swedish chef out of the Muppets.
Genius.
Or why don't we have one that's multi-use? Where, you add a hat to it, or you put a different hairstyle on it. It could just be a different person every day.
I like that.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
You might be able to get Wilshere and Chesney to have a fag kiosk out the front of it and actually have them in it.
But in all seriousness, with the way that the club's moving, it's going to be someone in the 2000s. It's going to be, just because they like to appeal to the latest sector of fans, and how they've moved from the old school era into this new bright era of money making and being, financially stable and able to compete. That's the line that they'll go. It's all too predictable, like Arsenal are these days.
The Gunnosaurus, then.
Yeah, the Gunnosaurus.
Speaking of stupid stories and statues, one thing I remember from the FA Cup final night, I was absolutely smashed in the Tollington, and someone said there was a lock-in in a pub I won't mention the name of for reasons, obviously for legal reasons, on the Blackstock Road. And I remember walking from the Tollington, so to get from the Tollington to Blackstock Road, you have to go past the Emirates Stadium. And I went and had a look at the Tony Adams statue, sat down on the steps, and then I think I woke up 4 hours later. So I must have slept outside the ground for 4 hours. I was that pissed. So that was pretty fucking stupid.
People probably thought there was a statue of you.
Yeah, I probably had curry sauce all over me. And Jesus, that was terrible. That was a low point. But I still made it into the pub. So.
When I first started supporting Arsenal and buying memorabilia, I had the little Arsenal key rings that you used to get, where they had like the old Arsenal badge on. This was probably about 1985, 86. And I had a coat, and I had one on the zipper and all four pockets.
Oh, bless you.
I proper special.
I tied that up to the max.
Jesus. Chris, have you got one more?
Yeah, I got three, and I feel I'm sorry to break the rules, but I'll do them as fast as I can, I promise. One of them was just a very quick one, which was John Barrett, who said, "Can you all give me one of your favourite memories from the North London derby?" Do you want to do that as a separate thing, or do you want to answer that now?
I think that deserves a separate one. Shall I go first? So I know what mine is straight away.
Go on.
I said it when we were doing the Arsenal After Dark thing. I mean, the ABW After Dark. It'd probably be my first ever live game I went to see, which was around my birthday was the 10th of October, so it was a week after that, 1987, away at Spurs. I think Pat Vandenhouse scored first, then Michael Thomas and David Rocastle scored the 2 goals for us. So that entire day, everything about that was probably my fondest memory.
Cool. Andrew?
Probably when Arsene Wenger stepped up and he went to a fight with Martin Yeo. That was pretty fucking hilarious.
Tim?
I think winning the title there. Yeah, definitely winning the title there.
Kim, you got one?
Yeah, I'll go with Tim. Winning the title there was, you know what? You just couldn't write it any better, could you?
Although perhaps the stupidest thing I ever did was then try to think that I'd live. Well, I did live in leaving the ground, but it was one of the most. Yeah, it was an interesting being chased on foot all the way to Northumberland Park, but it was still probably worth it once I realised I was home safely.
Just to check mine, and I said it as well on After Dark, but it was Ian Wright skinning Clive Wilson in 1996, getting to the byline and swinging over across for a young Dennis Bergkamp to, I think it's cut inside Andy Sinton and fire it past Ian Walker. 1996, I was 13, and I just let out a noise that I don't think I've ever let out in public ever before. Or ever again. It was just a wonderful moment, so I'll have that one.
The toilet seat testicle calamity of 1995.
Absolutely, that was certainly a yelp. We don't want that.
No.
Right, I'll rattle through these last 2. In fact, I'll give a nod to Liam Reed, a nod to Nicolaj Teliso, and a nod to Michael Nicole, who's at Michael Nicole. Guys, you've all got really good questions. We're just running a little bit out of time, so I don't want to forget you. But I've got one question that I just want Tim to answer, and then I've got one funny one to finish for you all. So the one for Tim is from Paul Bassett on Facebook. He basically says, if the worst case scenario was to happen this season and we finished outside of the top 4, now we've got a squad worthy of challenging for the trophy or for the title. He's a Wenger supporter, but he's interested to know whether you would still want the manager there or not, because he thinks that the Wenger out brigade have gone very quiet. That's for you, Tim. Sorry.
I think that the decision that would be made by Arsenal Football Club would be to keep the manager going, and it would be Arsene Wenger just or not. I've always felt that not coming in the top 4 is kind of the issue for him, on which he would question his own future. But I don't think it's going to happen this year. Arsenal are too good. Have got too many quality players, and they will come in the top 4.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, final question then. A little bit of a light-hearted one. This is from our friend Canadian Kelly, and she says,
Media superstar.
She's greeting Javinko, who's arrived at Toronto today. So there you go. She said, if bargain, if all the ABW podcasters got stranded on a desert island, who would die first and who would last the longest? Gim, it's got to be you first on that one.
Well, Danny's the fattest, so you would have to say that he'd probably last the longest.
No, he wouldn't, because we'd all eat him.
Yeah, that's a good point. We could have a Danny hog roast on the first night. That keep us going for a couple of weeks, wouldn't it?
Be like the KFC bucket that keeps on giving.
Oh God.
I'd probably go first because I'm an idiot. Either that or someone would drown me.
No, I think they'd all be queuing up to drown Davies first, to be fair.
Actually, no, that's a good point. Fuck him off first.
No,
yeah,
Davies will be off drowning the wildlife.
Oh God, he's gone there again. Okay, so we decided Davies would be the one to die first. So who would last the longest?
Probably Colin.
It would be MIA. I've told you that. Who would last the longest? I suppose if you could maybe count Gav, seeing as he's coming back doing a podcast every 5 weeks, probably.
He's now said every 4.
Every 4.
Yeah.
So Gav will be coming back every month to do a podcast. So if you want to count him as one of the crew again, I think Gav will probably last the longest through street marts and just the fact he's fucking strutter, isn't he?
He'll smash shit up. He'll run through the jungle, smash all the trees down, and have himself a hut.
Would
in seconds.
He'd be like Rambo. Within 2 days, all the trees would be fallen. You know, even the sea would fuck off probably if Gav was there.
I think you're overlooking something very important here.
I think.
Go on, Andrew.
With Dr. Dom,
there you
none
go.
of us would die, would we? We'd have his great caring his great care and custodianship looking after us, we'd all survive for years.
Massages
And not
every
only
day.
Not only that, Dom is from Australia, and what do Australians do best? They forage for stuff and they survive in the wilderness, like the outback.
You make them sound like anteaters.
No, they don't. What they do best is shit in other people's butter and then leave it for a month.
That's what Dom does.
Hide the turd. Rock
No,
and roll.
I reckon Dom would have bush skills, and I reckon that sounds wrong. I know he's got bush skills, but I reckon Dom would have that sort of Australian outback mentality, and he would be able to keep us all going. So Dom gets my vote on that one. I think he'd survive way beyond us.
It might be Kate because she's probably the only one who can cook.
That's a fair
Think of why now skewing on the barbie, mate.
No, I think maybe we've got to look at this a different way. With Kate being able to cook and Dom being able to sort us for, if we have any, ailments or whatnot.
Flourish.
I think we'd start a colony. People would want to join us.
We all know the correct answer would be Raj, because Raj would just kill us all off without even a second thought.
And that's before he goes full retard and fucking kills us all.
Yeah,
I still think that Danny Hog roast sounds good though. So
even I think that sounds good.
I think it sounds anything but good, but that's it from us. So sorry if we didn't get to all the questions, but hopefully we mentioned everybody.
Who did send me a question on Twitter that I felt I should ask? Mark, who is at AFCKVIST. On a scale of 1 to 10, how ginger is Gimli? I put 12 to 7.
I put minus 3.6 million.
Really?
Yes.
Nothing wrong with a ginger.
Oh, I love a bit of ginger.
After all, Andrew wouldn't be where he was today if it wasn't for steak and ginger.
It's very true. Gillian Anderson's still hot to this day.
Yeah. So, don't slate the gingers.
Of my heart. 3 a.m. WhatsApp messages. Oh, I'm in a taxi and I want a kebab.
Oh, where are you is the best one.
We're really saying we really
him.
should be saving this for after dark, fellas. Which I should say, a lot of people would have listened to the transfer deadline day special on Monday, and a lot of people have come to us asking where that 6th podcast is of the day. Now it is on YouTube if you look for it, but unfortunately, it's not really a lot of football talk on there. Basically, it's 4 hours and 40 minutes of what you would listen to on this podcast before and after the podcast was recorded. So if you like the Easter egg at the end of the podcast,
it's like a 4 3/4 hour Easter egg.
Exactly. And I would say, give it the time. The first hour, it takes a bit of time to get going, the first hour, but after that, I can assure you it's just pure filth. So if that appeals to you, if you're under 18, I would stress, and you are of a nervous disposition, don't listen to it. But first of all, let us know if you want us to do it on a regular basis, because there is a plan there to maybe do it. And let us know if you enjoy it. Hashtag ABW After Dark. So it's on YouTube. Hashtagged as the number 61, and you will see it's 4 hours and 40 minutes long.
But if it's an 18 rating, so you can't watch it unless you're 18 because YouTube check that shit.
Yes, but
basically, you, the listener, get to help us decide which STD Davis hasn't contracted for 4 hours.
So that is a standard telephone dialing code.
But you will hear stories about
socks.
Socks. Oh, no, I was going to say someone at a nightclub getting a lap dance, someone having an unfortunate incident in a job centre, and what happened to the other Umbro sock.
Sockgate.
Yes, there is loads of lovely little ditties in there, but it is like, and I will stress again, it is not for people of a nervous disposition.
And 3 of us are on webcam for the entire time.
And
when I fuck off to get some cereal.
Yes. But right, we'll wrap this up then with some shout-outs. And Danny, I'll go to you first.
Oh, don't. I haven't got anybody.
Don't give anyone then.
I'm going to go and find someone. Actually, the last person who tweeted me was Trophy Whores at Guna Dylan, Dyllan, and he said something to tell Tim, but I shall tell Tim off air because it's extremely fucking rude. Dylan, you dirty homeless bum.
Okay, that's lovely stuff. Kris?
Yeah, I got a bit of a unique one this one actually. Hate to bring the amusement down, but anyone that knows me or follows me knows that roughly about 10 days or so ago, I lost my granddad, unfortunately, and I was genuinely touched by the amount of people that have never met me. Some people never even heard of me that sent very kind tweets to me, and also all of the ABW crew, who is very much like a family to me now. So a little bit soppy, but it genuinely meant a huge amount to me for the people that tweeted. So to everybody that dropped me a line or a message or whatever it was, thank you very much. And just as a way of a quick question as well, anyone that can help me get a decent podcast app that doesn't involve me throwing my new iPod out the window, do drop me a line. I'd be intrigued to know if there are any decent ones out there.
Fantastic. Andrew, next.
I've got a shout out. Yeah, so it's a bird called the at is at live orange juice or live orange juice, however you want to pronounce it. Russian lady, Ekaterina Ulachenko, big Arsenal fan. Thank you. She routinely interacts and recently, very politely and kindly, free of charge, translated some letters for me, which were in Russian from my family over there.
Is she single? Because I have a thing for Russian ladies.
Oh, God.
Well, let's tweet her after and we'll ask her.
If she's single and ginger and a little bit chubby, I'd love her.
She's not ginger, but she does wear a kind of Russian barber, I guess. Yeah, but she very kindly translated some letters for me. She's a huge Arsenal fan, always likes to interact on Twitter. So yeah, give her a follow and she might translate some stuff for you boys.
We shall go follow her from the podcast account immediately.
It's nice to see we're still in touch with the lovely Lady Guna, referring to them as, oh yeah, so she's a lovely bird. Finally, Tim.
Hello?
Have you got a shout out this week?
Oh, yeah, where's Jeff?
Jeff, he was on a couple of weeks back. I think he might be on next week or the week after.
Well, my shout outs to Jeff, and I told you we should have bought that defender earlier. He usually agreed with me in the end.
Oh, yeah, we love our Jeff. My one this week goes to at Sessions Jack, who is at SESSIONSJACK, and also the boys from the Football Purist podcast. They had me on as a guest this Sunday after Aston Villa, and I had such a great time. It was really enjoyable. They really know their stuff. So if you're looking for another Arsenal podcast, because there's so much great content out there with the Arsenal in My Blood podcast as well, go and give them a listen as well. But make sure that we're the first you listen to. I will say that. That's the disclaimer. Go and have a listen to them because they're lovely boys, but listen to us first.
And
right.
If we don't, we'll send Davies round.
Yeah.
And nobody wants that.
And it was Welsh Justice, but it's now being hashtag Welsh Brown or Welsh Browning.
If he's got his flip-flops on, you might just be able to get away.
Speaking of which, Danny, you have got a cult following due to a certain message that was played on After Dark, which people need to listen to.
Yeah.
And we've had at least 5, 6, maybe 10 people now saying they want it as a ringtone. So
She'll put it on the site
you've got some
soon.
work to do. Yes,
very soon. And I've just gone and followed that lady that you said, Andrew, not that bird.
Someone actually said that they would pay good money for that sound clip. But I said that, we are a fan podcast for the people, so we would dig it up for free and we would put it out there for them.
I think that was Tyrone. I think getting money out of Tyrone's fucking impossible. So
terms like bird are just part of the rural charm which our listeners love from us, Daniel.
Love it. A little bit of totty never hurt anyone.
No. Lovely stuff. So that's about time to wrap this up then. And I'll thank our special guest for the evening, Tim Payton. Thank you very much, Tim. You've been a legend as always.
Love it.
Cheers, Tim.
And we won't leave it so long next time.
No, of course not. I'd love being on.
Good.
Cheers, Tim. Thank you very much. And also tonight's panellist. I won't thank Danny because you have to be here. But Kris and Andrew, thank you so much for stepping in tonight and doing your bit as ABW's fine panellists.
Pleasure as always.
And cheers to Gimli for hosting. Bless his soul.
Nobody gets forgotten on this show. So that was... Who?
I can't remember.
Oh, never mind then.
Colin.
So that was a Bergkamp Wonderland podcast. Thank you so much for listening and keep it Arsenal. Good night.
Schlegs.
Nanu, cheeky sock monkeys. As requested, here is the WhatsApp audio from the ABW After Dark thing that I sent saying about Jason, flip-flops and Kris's Metallica book. So here it is, and enjoy, and we'll also put it on the website.
Whoa, 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 whoa. To the left of the M of Metallica. Go left a little bit. I see a fucking flip-flop. Is that fucking cunt Davies? Is he? Has he barged in? Woo woo, Tady, where's the lead?